All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode of the Systems of Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Noah Kronfly. Today, again, I'm joined by a very special guest. It is the first, or we're breaking into the double digits now with this episode, which is so exciting. I am joined today by Mr. Brian Veeder. Am I saying your last name correctly? Is that right?
Veeder, actually. So it
Veeder,
has a
yes.
long E in the front, but yeah,
Long E in the front. I knew I was
we
messing that up.
we can church it up and say Veeder.
It's kind of
That
nice.
sounds more
It's
sophisticated,
tight to it.
actually.
Yeah, right. Brian, from the start here, I just wanted to say, thankfully you've consumed a couple of these podcasts. So you know how I do this, but I always like to start these podcasts by just saying thank you. Like there's always the people that get to join on these podcasts with me, I always have a previous relationship with. And I'd like to say thank you from the jump, just for our interactions, our relationship that we're getting to build so far, just where we've, I would say limited even at this point interactions that we've had, but what I've gotten to learn from you. And I know there's more and more growth and evolution and both of us getting to experience more and more together. So again, thank you for, building this relationship with me. Thank you for jumping on. I'm super, super excited to dig in today.
Likewise, I mean, the outlook and the expression of gratitude is really an abundance mindset, and that's what wealth's all about. It's
Yeah.
about abundance. It's about interacting and intersecting that way with that approach. So
Oh,
yeah,
I love
definitely
that. That's great.
the gratitude expression I think is well suited to your
Uh,
theme of,
I'm just a learner too. I just love to learn. And like, I'm so thankful and grateful to be in this position to like, I just like the inspiration where this podcast really came from me was like, there are things that I am personally dealing with, like questions that I have from an entrepreneur perspective. And, it can be isolating sometimes to feel like these are, my own problems. And so like, but then I started to turn my mind to like, well, man, like there, I really do have access to some of these guys that are and gals that are 10, 20, 30 years ahead of me. Like, I wonder if they've experienced similar problems that I have. And then I start asking some questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have. And there's also people my age that are also feeling the same thing. Like, man, I got to document this. I got to put this out. There's value here. Like, we got to have these conversations.
there's a business owner I know in a mastermind group I'm with. He's a real estate guy from the Atlanta metro area, and
Yeah.
says there's two people, or there's two types of people, or two categories of people in the world: that the type that will tell you about their problems and be honest and genuine about them, and the type that lie and say they don't have any. So
Run far away from those
just
people.
realizing that somebody else's problems may not be squarely your own, but there's
Yeah.
definitely relatable aspects of all that, and we can, like you said, we can definitely learn from each other, and
100%.
realize that none of us are immune to the turmoil and difficulties and headwinds of life, and in different ways, and there's probably more common ground than we tend to believe.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And we were just touching on this honestly before we started recording about like the value you can take from different relationships that you jump into in your life. And I think that's something that I have, like I always joke about it. The first, like what got me into almost like consuming content online was a guy named Mike Chang. I was trying to get in shape when I was in high school. And he was like the first like real big YouTube advertiser guy. And now if anybody knows that, like he kind of got ran out of the industry for selling some not so like some supplements that like weren't really doing what they were, being sold. I didn't take any of his supplements, but like that was what like got me in shape, was somebody that like not a lot of people really vibe with. And then the other guy of like that got me into like entrepreneurship was Ty Lopez. And so many people give him like have bad feelings about him, but I was like, he got me like into learning about this and got me started in like online marketing. So I think there's some like putting your personal feelings toward like a relationship like that and kind of put it on the sidelines and finding the gold that you can get out of that somebody. Like I think that is a real superpower, and you were touching on it. Like the relationships that you interact with in life, like there's gonna be some value. There's something that you can, it's not even like what you said, like I'm not trying to get something out of this, but there is something that you can learn by just that interaction, that coming across it naturally in your life. You don't know where it's going to show up. You really don't.
Yeah, I want to communicate clearly. So when you say that, it naturally may sound like I just look at other people like, what can I take from you?
Yeah, right.
But really, what it's all about is just viewing other people as complementary, and viewing
Yes.
relationships as being purposeful, because there is some sort of a purpose to all the relationships and intersection points we have. And oftentimes
Yes.
I think we're so busy as business owners too, that we're just go 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 all the time, and we don't take the time necessarily to pay attention to the relationship aspect of what's always going on around us,
Right.
and what sort of complementary passions and talents and gifts does somebody else have that's come into my life for a purpose.
Right.
What do I have maybe that I can offer them as well? You know, what we oftentimes are, you know, like the puzzle pieces, we're each craft a little bit different. We each have our own space and place and right fit, and to view, you know, to view relationships as purposeful is, I think, an incredible way to develop systems of wealth in life,
Yeah.
because you know you can have such rich return on that, of viewing, just opening your eyes and being attentive to that, what's going on around you, what,
Right.
you know, oftentimes there's seasons of life too where people will kind of go, and so just,
Yeah.
I think, being attentive to that as well, of this might be in place for a season. It may not be all of life. It may be a short season. It may be a long
Right.
season. But being flexible and attentive to that, I think, is really important in terms of the wealth aspect that's available to all of us in relationships.
I love that. I love like and if anybody hasn't gone back and listened to the previous episode that I got to do with Brian's business partner, Frank, so much of like what they are driven by is the passion and purpose and intention that, like, I just think that's so valuable of just living that, like taking that approach just to life in general. Like that's what drives them from business owner perspective, which I just love. Cause I think even something like that, like the more that I've gotten and aware of my intention of like energy of how I pass on to other people, it could be as simple as like, I'm going to buy coffee and I smile at the person that's helping me. And like, you don't know how far along that can go, like in their day too. Like, I just think that is so valuable. But yes, let's tee this up a little bit. Let's go back. I mean, you've gotten to consume a couple of these podcasts. So you know how that I start. And I'm super curious to hear your answer to this question. But Brian, when people ask you what you do, what your official title is, how do you usually frame that? How do you usually say that to people?
So if you get an email from me, it says operations coordinator in my
Yes. Right.
signature. So I actually have a marketing degree.
Okay.
I've never done marketing professionally.
Right.
So I'm academically trained, but I'm 42 years old. So that was 20 years ago I graduated, and marketing looked way different
Yeah.
then when I graduated from college than it does now. Although you know, some of the principles are eternal and everlasting. There's
Very
just,
much.
you know, there's still a lot of, you know, who's my audience? How do I reach them? How do I articulate what I have that can solve a problem they have? You know, it's stuff like that that's sort of, it's evergreen. It's
Yep.
always going to be a part of what marketing is.
Yes.
But a lot of the methodology that we have and the tools we have now are just incredible in terms of the digital marketing and cloud-based platforms, and just a lot of the collaborative horsepower that's available to us now that wasn't a part of the world then, you know, in terms of even the social media and some of the groups that, you know, you can idea share, and
Right.
you can cover so much ground so fast now, and you can have access to so many different viewpoints and ideas and experiences and worldviews that just expand your reach, I think, exponentially in terms of what marketing can be if you
Right.
let it blossom. So but I've been I guess operationally inclined as I've navigated my career path. I kind of have had many and diverse stops along the way. I've done everything from the manual labor of
Okay.
agriculture, where you have dirt and grease underneath your fingernails at the end of the day, and calluses and stuff like that.
Yep. Yep.
I've done high level stuff. I've got a Series 65 securities license.
All right.
I've, you know, I've worked with high net worth individuals on charitable goals. I had a stint in a nonprofit and a ministry organization that helped both individuals and organizations with their charitable goals and did things like that.
Yep.
That was really neat. But I always loved the relationship aspect of all those things, and
Hmm.
you know, having the ability to come and be a part of what I'm a part of here now.
Mm-hmm.
The vision of the community of entrepreneurs who can both give and receive, who can pour into each other and receive the, you know, the blessings of somebody else's, you know, learn from somebody else's mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Or hear from somebody else's perspective that's different than your own.
Right.
Be challenged by somebody else who's got the chops to take you to task a little bit, to make you defend fiercely what you really believe,
Yeah.
what you're convicted by, you know, things like that.
Right.
Uh, be in you know, some passionate interaction with each other. That's the kind of that's the kind of vision and community we seek to build
Hmm.
with what we're up to here. And that's really what captivated me, was the the relational aspect of coming together, and like I said, the complementary aspect of my peanut butter and your chocolate, what I have, that what you have, and the sum of the sum of what we have together is greater than
Yes.
the parts by themselves. And so
100%.
that's what I love about what we do here, and what excites me and drives me to keep churning day after day, and drive towards that future vision and goals that we have.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I think more and more as like, I know I'm still a young budding entrepreneur, but I think I've been aware enough to understand that like it's not always like what you're doing, but who you're doing it with and the people that like you're surrounding or at least attracting to you makes, and especially having like a strong network of people that you can go to and sort of lean on when, inevitably the times get tough. It doesn't, you're not totally bulletproof, but like fostering and nurturing those relationships, there's so much just hidden gold. And again, it's not like I'm trying to get out of it. It's just there's something that I can have a benefit of you, and inevitably that's just how the flow of life works. But so Frank talked about sort of the creation and envision of how Kahuna kind of came about, but I don't know your guys' backstory of like how you guys met, how you became partners, what you guys are working on now. Like where were you at in your career or personal and professional life of like you and Frank coming together and starting, what you guys are doing now?
So this particular business has been a part of Frank's life for decades.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, I'd say pushing
Like,
30 years now.
yeah, right.
So his history is much longer here than mine is.
Hmm.
He and I actually talked about me coming on board for probably 2.5 years before it actually happened. So
Wow. Okay.
we had um, we had a relationship from a church I don't attend anymore. Frank's still there, but a church in the community we both lived at the time, and just got to know each other that way. And I knew what he was doing.
Yep.
What I was doing was it was great at the time. It wasn't something necessarily I wanted to do long term the rest of my life. So
Right.
I sort of had in mind of what might be next, or what might be around the corner, not knowing if that was another year, 2 years, 5 years,
Mm.
10 years, whatever. But so he and I had discussions for a long time, and of course, um, part of that was during the time COVID started, so that really threw a lot of things into a tailspin and
Of
flux,
course.
and
Yeah.
made a lot of our things, we I guess challenged a lot of our assumptions, and probably disproved a lot of our assumptions too, because
Yeah. Right.
the reality as we knew it sort of,
Yes.
and
Of course.
that affected everybody in different ways, but also in a common way. It's in terms of, like I said, just disproving a lot of assumptions we all had about the way of life that we knew. And so um, anyway, all that to say, it's somewhat, I think, maybe delayed, but for the right reasons. I would say, looking back,
Mm.
of timing wise, of how we came together. And so we've got a very strong leadership team here of Frank and Andy and I, and we're all
Hmm.
very different of how our personal makeup is, how we communicate, how we look at things. If you One thing that I've noticed recently, probably in a more pronounced way, is the difference between looking at life and options and decisions in a benefits to gain mentality, or a losses to avoid, in terms of like
Hmm.
defense and offense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But and not everything's purely that way, but I think all of us kind of have a little bit of a slant that way, of what, like, when the rubber meets the road, how do I, if I have to make a tough decision, how do I analyze it,
Yeah.
okay, would I go forward, or would I pass, or would I capitalize on this, and in terms of maybe even the kind of risk we're willing to take versus the return we see, or the kind of risk we're willing to take versus the threats we see that
Hmm.
might potentially be a part of that decision, or dynamic of an opportunity that is available to us, or on the table, so to speak. So things like that, I think, and like I said, we all tend to look at things a little bit differently. So coming full circle a little bit to what I was saying earlier about how complementary relationships are really important to recognize and realize, and keep in place in life, because my tendencies are not necessarily good or bad, they just are. And so
Yeah.
in different things. I may have weaknesses that somebody else has a strength that can sort of, when you have all of us together, we're much stronger than the individual who's got some shortcomings and weaknesses. But when we can function in a complementary fashion, I think that's the key to success and moving forward and making good decisions overall. It's not always just one person's viewpoint that might be skewed in one way or another, but there's a
Yeah,
balance and a little bit of a refinement as well. And we do have disagreements, and that's a
of
good thing
course.
too.
Right.
In a high trust environment, you can have those. You can be honest and genuine, and in the business community, I think that's one of the things that's probably lacking a lot right now is the ability to in high trust to disagree and to, it's not the end of the world. We don't have to see things the same way, but if I can state my viewpoint and you can state yours and we can have a conversation, I think that's one of the things. Social media is great for a lot of things, but I think it's also taken a lot of the quality interaction of the human condition out of what we need to re-inject into those things, and especially in the
Agreed.
community of, we can disagree and still move forward, and especially in leadership in the business, that's really important, I think, to manage that well and foster an
Mhm.
environment that can take place.
That's
So
great. I love that. There's a few things that you touched on there that I want. So like the one of them being having almost like a framework to lean on when a difficult decision arises, right? Like a situation that you find yourself in that you maybe haven't navigated before. You just don't quite know how to process it. And having, as I've gotten a little bit more, I wouldn't even call it like, I would just say like mature and developed, or have ran into a lot of situations. I think you touched on it too with like the COVID thing. Like that was a difficult this position to be in because there was no rule book for that one. Everyone
right,
was just like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I
yeah,
was
we're all
like,
in, just like we're figuring it out.
yeah. And I was like, I don't know how to go to my parents for advice. Everybody around me, like, is still like, even though I relate to people, I was like, this is a brand new play. There's no rule book for that. So what out of that for me, I like was in a position where like, okay, well, when I am faced with these decisions, like I need to have some frameworks. I need to have like, well, if this happens, then I got this. And it's not even like, it's just to put the thinking down and to run it through and it really comes down to just like knowing yourself. But the other one that you touched on, I think is a really big part of evolving as an entrepreneur and just like being looking for better leverage in a business position is having the understanding that I am not going to be the superpower or superhero that's going to do it all. And I don't have to be the one to do it all. And leaning on people and building and ultimately like cultivating talent around me is one of like, is such a big superpower as just a business owner, like bringing people around you, finding complementary strengths, leaning on that, having trust to be able to lean on that. But what was that process like for you? Were you able to sort of find your natural kind of skill set as in the operation kind of world? Like, did that take time for you? Did that come with just experience of trying out different jobs and you're like, maybe I'll try this? And then you kind of found like, how was that? How did you end up finding yourself in this position now? Like, okay, this is my skill set. I want to do this. I'm good at this. And oh, there are actual other people that need this out of me because they just aren't as good as this, as I am. Like, what was that like for you?
you know i'm I'm figuring out how to lead. My title is a little bit of a misnomer, but for the time being, it's more operational here. But yeah, I'm definitely sort of getting my feet under me
Yeah.
as a true business leader, and not simply as a just a role in the progression of what needs to happen.
Right.
I naturally enjoy, um, I enjoy, like Hannibal and the A Team would say, like, I love it when a plan comes together. I like
Yes,
that that gives me satisfaction.
of
When you
course.
put the pieces together, and it may not look exactly like you thought it did, but it worked out.
Yeah.
And that's been a part of my life. A lot of career stops is being able to take sort of uh, a group of things that need to happen, and putting them together, or looking at a lot of the near term tasks and saying, okay, who's the right one to do this today, and
Mhm.
then lining up the dominoes that need to fall the rest of the week, or something like that, where we can maximize, I guess you might say, operational efficiency, that type of thing.
Yes.
That really, I still enjoy that to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Uh, that may not be always exactly where I am in terms of what I do necessarily long term here, but that's definitely a place where I found a high degree of satisfaction. And I'm also somewhat of a recovering pleaser as well. So, that's a part of my personality, and it can be good and bad
Yep.
because I care about what other people that I work with and and potentially over in terms of supervision, or
Mm.
people that at least in a coworker, even a lateral capacity. But um, I'm concerned about their satisfaction in their work too. So to be able to line things up in a way that, if I have the ability to make those decisions, that they're finding fulfillment in their work too. That they're doing
Yes.
things they enjoy, that they're receiving the type of tasks that are in their wheelhouse, and that they can find fulfillment and satisfaction with as well,
Oh,
to the
I
extent
love
that
that.
the job and role allows too. So, and there's certainly there's a downside to being a pleaser too, that sometimes it
Hmm.
can drive your decisions to an unhealthy level as well.
Yep. Right.
Sometimes you need to make those tough decisions as well as a leader. So that's why, like, getting back to like my own personal growth is where those are some of the places that are definitely deficits for me to be able to grow and mature into, as well as a business leader.
Hmm.
But yeah, overall, I've recognized that that's a part of the fabric of who I am, is kind of putting it all together, and as they say in the EOS world, making the trains run on time,
Yes.
lining things up well,
Hmm.
that the business hums and runs smoothly. But no, I've had I've been able to work for really quality individuals character wise, which has been a tremendous blessing my entire life.
Yeah.
And they've uh, to a man have really taught me by example, really,
Hmm.
of what good leadership's about, and all of them have been willing to get in the business. You hear the gurus talk about being in the business versus on the business, right?
Yep.
And I'm definitely not here to discount the need to lead and elevate yourself to be on the business, to see what, to take, as like Jay Abraham says, the outside and slightly elevated view of what's going on, because that does give you the proper perspective, I think, for the most part, to
Of
lead,
course. Right.
but also to know what it is like to trenches. And
Yeah.
you just gain a level of respect and buy-in from the folks that are the staff who do the work, if they know that what it's like to do their role too. And so,
It's great.
to to strike the right balance there, I think, is important, especially in small business, because you don't always have the luxury of being in that executive corner office always. Sometimes you can be for a time, but as the business expands and
Hmm.
even contracts, we saw a lot of business contraction over COVID.
Yes.
Being able to expand in small business is very tough. It's tough to line up resources the right way to expand. Most people want to grow their business somehow in some form or fashion, but uh, what very few people talk about is contracting the right way too.
Hmm.
Sometimes we need to contract and refine the business to go forward with expansion again the right way. So
Yes.
that's also hard. It's hard to go both directions in business. It's hard to right
Right.
size certain things that you just, some expenses, some resources, some aspects of the business just are, no matter what size you happen to be at the time. And so it's
Yes.
navigating those things is a challenge, and that's what small business is
Ah.
all about. It's about being adaptable
Hmm.
to changes, and dealing with the things you can't control, maybe managing them to an extent where they don't totally sink you, but where at one point you can get past that and actually turn that back into an asset that's producing for you. But
Right.
there may be a time in a season in your business life where you just have to sort of manage something that's not a right fit.
Right.
Recognizing those things, those are some of the challenges that aren't the sexy business book topics,
Yes. Right.
yet they exist. They're real.
Ah. I'm so happy you're touching on this, Brian, seriously, because like I think you and I are very similar in this sense. And I honestly went through a self-discovery process of understanding that I call it like ops and systems of a business is really what I fell in love with too. Like I enjoy being the behind the scenes. I like being hands-on. I like being in the day-to-day. I like complementing myself with partners who have big vision and big ideas, but need some constraints to put it into practice and see it come to life. And honestly, I felt at times like on the outside, you know, what's funny is like, again, I'm so like anybody that's watching this can see me smiling so much, but if you're listening, you can't see it. But my goodness, like
You can
even
hear it.
as a
You can tell.
even as an entrepreneur, right? Like sometimes you're on the outside of just like the regular kind of like way that people perceive and just, you know, go about life. You're already on the outside. And then I think even as like the vein being inside the entrepreneurship world, I've felt like on the outside sometimes too, because I don't always align with the I don't know how to frame it always because I'm not like I don't want to say that I'm not the CEO type because we have those types of qualities and we can be that way. And I think having a macro vision for my life and plotting things out like as a CEO would, but like in my professional traits and skills, I cater more towards like the management by numbers and the project management side, you know, type of things. But I think, you know, you were touching on it too, like being a marketer and being empathetic to looking at a cold system, but knowing how a customer experience is going to be, how a person on my team's experience is going to be with that is so valuable. But I have felt sometimes on the outside of like, well, sometimes though the sexy business books aren't always applicable to me because I am the one in the day to day doing things, and these things still need to get done, and I can't always be on the outside. And those are sometimes my partners, so like I can understand and relate to them. But like you touched on something that I've really been trying to articulate lately is like when I was growing up, my big I mean, like we were touching on it a little bit. Like I think my journey as an entrepreneur didn't start when I was 20 and I started working. It started when I was born. Like I was just born. Like that's just it's a I'm not I can't discount the things that I experienced from 0 to 20. Like that had a big impact on who I am. And so when I was growing up, I was an athlete, right? Like I was a pitcher. And I think you touched on it. So like I loved being a pitcher because I had total control over the tempo of a game. I was there to make sure that things were running on time. Nothing moved without me moving. And my coach was kind of like my big visionary. But then someone inevitably had to be in the trenches that was willing to like do the work to grind that out and to like continue to push those things forward and be sort of like a surveyor of what's happening around me and push my teammates to keep going and keep going. But like inevitably, it still came down to me controlling the tempo and being on like being having my finger on the pulse of what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, you needed a catcher to call a good game. You needed your defense behind you
I
to
need all those
get
pieces.
outs.
Yes.
But you needed to throw strikes.
100%. I needed to like set that tempo. I needed to be a leader. I needed to show up. I needed people to understand and feel my energy and see me step in and stay, you know, day in and day out and put that in. And that's like what I feel like I've built a business around that too, of like I'm still sort of like the pitcher in my different roles, but I've found many coaches now that get to like sort of coach me and like I get to still control the tempo and push things forward. I don't know. I've been trying to articulate that lately, and you really just like you struck that nerve with me. I really, really loved what you touched on. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, your teammates can see too. I naturally am a pretty even keel, steadfast
Yep.
presence,
Right.
and I enjoy the regular client interaction. I enjoy the
Hmm.
regular coworker interaction
Yep.
that's unscripted, that's unplanned. I don't particularly enjoy the big presentations. I don't
Yep.
enjoy the product launch introductions, like being a part of. It's not that I wouldn't do that. I don't have a problem necessarily with speaking
Hmm.
and being a face or anything like that. But I enjoy the regular and the routine and the everyday.
Ah, I love it.
I
Yes.
I like to be count. I like to be able to be counted on to
Hmm.
be predictable in terms of you can count on Brian to be here to answer the email,
I
to
love it.
show up, to have the phone conversation,
Hmm.
uh, just to be the steadying influence. And to the pitcher illustration, if your teammates see you rattled, if they see you always walking off the mound like you're shook by how the umpires call in the strike zone, and you're
Hmm.
going to the rosin bag all the time, and if they can see the worry and the concern on your face, like you can't get a strike across the plate, that affects everybody. So to
Yes.
be able to have the calm control of, we've got this.
Mm.
It's not that you don't ever have doubts, but you've got to be able to see the long vision of what our purpose is, we
Hmm.
still hold fast to what we say we believe. We still know what our mission is and what our purpose is and how we're going to go about it. And,
Hmm.
there's going to be, the other team's trying to, right? Yeah, there's competition in the marketplace. The other team's trying to. So we're not gonna bat 1,000. We're not gonna get on base every time.
Right.
We're not gonna keep the other team from scoring every game. But if we stay steadfast and keep at it, if we continue to know what our purpose and our mission, what our goals are, and how we're gonna get there, and every day move towards those things, we'll get there.
Yes.
And I think to be a leader is to be steadfast in
Hmm.
that. And yeah, there's going to be days where it's a step backwards, but if every week is 3 or 4 steps forward and 1 or 2 steps back, you still get there.
Yep.
And so I think to
That's great.
continue on in the journey, and to remain optimistically enthusiastic about this is why we're here, and we're going to continue to keep at it. That's
Yes.
really important as a business leader.
100%. I'm like, it was real, is legitimately advice that I would get from my dad every time that I pitch is just don't show any emotion. It was always what it was, like not getting too high, not getting too low, being resilient, stepping in, like just doing the work over and over again. And it's the same deal that I have now. It's like, I want people to know when they're working on me that, or working with me, that I'm responsible, that I am taking massive ownership, that I am dependable, I'm going to be consistent, I'm going to be reliable, that I'm going to be the one that's going to step in, and continue to grind that out. Like if you can see me leading from the front lines and like I'm putting in effort when things aren't, always the greatest, environment around us, then, that's going to inevitably push other people to, ultimately try to just get better and better for themselves as well. So yeah, you really, really, you touched on that. That was big. I really like that, Brian. That was awesome.
We talk as a mantra and a belief system. We talk about being a guide here for our clients, and not the guru. So we don't
Yeah.
have the prescriptive do it our way. And there's a place certainly
Hmm.
for gurus that have the mold that you need to do things their way. That I'm not here necessarily to discount that, but that's a differentiator for us, that
Yeah.
we seek to be that presence that comes alongside you as a business
Mm.
owner, that that reassures you you're not by yourself in this, because that's a lot of what entrepreneurship is about too,
Yeah.
is fighting the lie that I'm the only one who experiences these problems. Nobody
Right.
understands me.
Right.
And that's simply not true. And so for us to come alongside an entrepreneur business owner, and to help them understand that guidance is available and possible for you, and a good thing for
Right.
somebody to come alongside you, that can point things out, that help you ask better questions, that can help you see things that are clear and present, but just maybe clouded by vision, or just the busyness of what you're all about every day, but just to help you step back and ask better questions,
Yep.
and be more of a approach things with more of a Socratic method of okay, why, or what else might be possible, what's another way we could approach this that we're not thinking about,
Mm.
things like that. What else could we try here, and be just be more curious in terms of your journey, and not challenging those assumptions. We
Right.
all have assumptions. We all, I think, naturally revert to some of those assumptions that we believe in as truth, but it may not be like that. And so to
Yeah.
really challenge that and say, what else could be possible here?
Right. I think that like one of the big, I mean, one of the big difficulties of entrepreneurship is like there is no rule book. There's no one again handing you like this is the way that it is. And so designing sort of what your, because people define growth, or they're going to define success, or they're going to define like pushing their business forward different. Like it's going to look different for everybody. And that's sort of those questions of asking yourself of like, really what is it that you're after? What are you designing? What are you going after? Like having that in paper, at least some sort of directionally, so you can, get some momentum going towards that is for me, like I've just found is it breeds a lot more peace and enjoyment out of what I'm doing as well, because there is intention and purpose. There was something that you said before we started recording that one of the mantras that you guys have is drive, don't drift. I really, really like that. What are some, I don't want to even say like basic or practical, but like from somebody that is sort of trying to maybe be a bit more purpose driven or intentional in their business, what are some of the exercises that you either take people through or some sort of advice that they could start to questions that they could start rattling around that might get them a little bit closer to a little bit more of like an ideal end goal for themselves?
Yeah, one of the things I think that's central to that is really having a clear understanding. All business owners, all entrepreneurs have a reason. They have a why for
Yeah.
why are you in the business you're in? Why did you, if you're a founder, why did you start this?
Right.
If you acquired it, why did you buy it? For what purpose? What problem did you see
Hmm.
that your business is able to solve for somebody that nobody else can do it the way you did it, or
Yes.
you do it? You know, but it's often easy to lose sight of those things and to quit operating and making decisions in a way that's true to those
Hmm.
ideals, to that mission. It, it's easy to deviate from your vision to accommodate maybe current headwinds or current challenges you're dealing with. But
Right.
to one of the things that we really emphasize too is that uh, is to be forward looking and to be
Hmm.
proactive and not reactive. And a lot of the financial industry is very reactive. It's
Yeah.
very rear view oriented
Hmm.
of here's what has happened.
Right.
And if we only ever make judgments about what's possible in the future based on what has happened, I think we miss out on a ton of potential of the growth curve being entirely different
Hmm.
from the way it's been to the way it can be. And asking better questions is a lot of what this is all about.
Yeah.
And I think too, realizing that as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you're constantly
Mhm.
you're elevating yourself always to the next level of what you don't know and figuring it out. So
Hmm.
I think to surround yourself with a good trusted team, a good support network, with folks who've got experience, who aren't going to tell you what to do, but
Hmm.
help you see and help you gain visibility of what some of the challenges and pitfalls may be, or what some of the other options might be that you're not considering,
Yeah.
don't see. And,
Right.
that's a lot of what we're here to be in terms of our purpose and mission, is to empower that exponential entrepreneur
Hmm.
to really explore it all, to drive their business, and not just allow the not just exist in the business wherever the factors around them are pushing or pulling them one side or the other,
Right.
but really you can drive your business to your chosen goals, to your mission and vision. But it takes a team approach.
Yeah.
What got you to the place you are now is probably not going to get you to ultimately where you want to be either. And
Hmm.
so realizing that you've got to surround yourself with the folks that can help you get there.
Hmm. Jeez, that's great. I really, there was something that you touched on there, like the the idea. Well, going back to what you had said earlier about there was something that you touched on with the high net worth individuals, and I want to find some similarities between like the business owners that are finding some harmony almost in their businesses with those questions and the commonalities between like how that then leads to just exponential business growth, which is going to lead to valuation, which is just going to ultimately build the generational wealth. Like, what are some of the commonalities that you see between business owners that are operating at a high level and some of those high net worth individuals? Like, what are the same sort of similarities that you see between those people?
The the resources they have, or in terms of the entrepreneur and the business owner, the business they have is a tool or a vehicle to
Hmm.
accomplish some sort of an ideal, or
Right.
or the vision they have.
Yes.
When I worked with charitable folks, that the money was the tool to affect the change that they wanted to see, and the charitable organization was in that business of affecting that
That's
change
great.
that
Yeah.
they were passionate about. And for
Right.
business owners, it's almost the same thing.
Same
In
thing.
a lot of ways, it's exactly the same thing. It's just
Hmm.
it's manifested differently, but it's the same thing. It's the vision, that the passion, the burning drive inside me to be able to solve some problem, or to affect some sort of a change, or
Yeah.
to establish some kind of a culture that communicates my values,
Right.
that I have the ability to not necessarily change other people, but to provide a place where folks can earn a living and have a fulfilling role in a job and a career in a place that has that culture and those values that are important to me as a business owner.
Right.
Things like that, or in my community, to be able to impact my community in a specific way,
Hmm.
to provide some sort of stability, or a service or a product that's really needed in the place where I'm at, or if my business is virtual and in within the network I can reach, things like that that's what it's all about, I think,
Wow.
for the business owner, for the entrepreneur, and like I said, for those high net worth individuals. It wasn't about the money. For them was the tool to affect that change that they were passionate about.
Yes.
And the business
It's
is the same
great.
way. It's the vehicle to accomplish that, to fulfill that passion that they have.
That's something that concept is very new to me. I honestly didn't think that really it didn't solidify until I started having more conversations with you and Frank and the rest of the team of just viewing businesses as an asset. And the something that I love that came out of the conversation that Frank and I had was like, as you get more intentional behind the questions that you're asking yourself of like how you want your business to ultimately continue to grow. And again, I'm going to put grow in quotation marks because that looks and is sort of defined differently for everybody. But what comes out of that is like from a acquisition standpoint, the business may be more attractive from a value standpoint of someone that could come in and possibly buy it, but also the enjoyment and satisfaction that comes with spending your time working in or on the business as that continues to grow. There seems to be just a sync, like it seems to sync. You find like, oh, I'm enjoying this more because I'm more intentional behind my decisions, but also inevitably doing that, my business is now becoming more valuable. It's growing in enterprise value. People are more attracted to possibly then taking this off my hands. And it all goes back to the same foundation of this being a vehicle to not only, build wealth for myself, but continue to be my outlet for the impact that I'm looking to have. I mean, ultimately that's what is going to drive you through the times that it becomes very difficult to run a business. But I like that the singe between those two things hasn't really become very apparent to me until talking to you guys, and then it finally clicked, and I was like, oh my goodness, that makes sense. There's nothing else that I want to learn about other than that. Like, that's so cool to me.
There's exceptions to every rule, certainly, but I don't know that we've ever run across a business owner whose business wasn't his or her most significant asset
Of course.
in their life, in their entire asset picture.
Right.
Like I said, I'm sure there's a handful out there that maybe that's not the case, but
Yeah.
by and large, that that's true for the vast majority of
Right.
business owners. Is that
Right.
on paper and in terms of your investment of time in your life, it is
Yes.
the most significant thing.
100%.
And like you said too, I don't know, we could do some quick math, I guess, and figure out, if you work a 40-hour week, and most entrepreneurs don't, but let's just say, even if you work a 40-hour week, the vast majority of your waking hours are spent at the business, on the business, with the
Mhm.
business, with the people that work with you and for
Yep.
you. And so to do anything other than try and enjoy and make the most of that time is very, it's self-defeating in life, to think that you're going to have a fulfilling life
Hmm.
if it's such a grind every day to do that. So,
Hmm.
certainly as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you want to make that experience as enjoyable for yourself and everybody else, just by virtue of logically, why wouldn't we, right?
Yeah.
If we're able to, why wouldn't we? uh, you know and getting back to that, like I said earlier, of the reason why you started and choose to continue day after day to do what you do,
Hmm.
it is for the purpose of fulfilling that passion. And so, and that's the ultimate, I think, in enjoyable journey. So there, I'm not here to skew things, in terms of saying that there's not going to be challenges and bad days, right? There's certainly that, but overall, we want this experience for ourselves and everybody else to be an enjoyable and fulfilling ride.
Yes. 100%. That's great. I want to pivot a little bit to talking about money. And I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about, but I think it's so, I mean, again, it's one of my, I don't know where my fascination with it comes from. I think it's, I was not, it wasn't super talked about growing up. And so I just got really deep into like understanding that this is something I need to get better at. I need to work on this. And so, like anything, you just kind of be obsessed and you just go deep into it. And I have. And so I
Let
think,
me ask you a question, Noah.
yeah, please.
What's your earliest memory of anything to do with money?
My earliest memory to anything to do with money, it's a really good question. Probably when I was really young, and I'm still this way, I'm kind of like a collector of things. I like collecting boxes and stuff like that. And so I know I had this little box growing up that I would just stuff little dollars that I would go into. Like I would get a dollar a week allowance for cleaning, like, cleaning windows, something like that. And I would just stuff this little box and then whatever little trinkets that I would want to buy. Yeah, something like that.
It's interesting just to reflect on those things, and then uh, there there are definitely people and lessons that we've learned and been taught that really influence, and I think how we interact with money, how we view money, how we use
Yeah.
money, how we make decisions about it, with it. If you're married, for the listeners and watchers, if you're married, if you have kids,
Hmm.
to reflect on your parents. We're all wired just a little bit differently, I think. Um, there's different schools of thought. Most people have probably heard of Gary Chapman and his five love languages. There's actually a pastor in North Carolina, Tommy Brown, that wrote a book, The Seven Money Types. And so it
Okay.
goes into this explanation of how we each have, we're probably, it's sort of like the Colby test, or Perry Marshall as his marketing quiz. You you're wired in some way to handle money a specific way as well. It's sort of
Hmm.
it's sort of like those, like a Myers Briggs or something for money. We
Yeah.
we each have a specific way that we're sort of most inclined to look at it and use it,
Mm.
and just to embrace that, but
Yes.
also to recognize that it there what he calls the shadow side of those. There is a, like, a detrimental way that you can act in the way you're most inclined, or
Of course.
there's a way you can take that too far to where it's not
Yes.
beneficial anymore and it's harmful to yourself and other people. But you
Right.
get to see those differences
Mm.
in other people, especially the people you have the closest relationships to, like a spouse, like
Yep.
children, like your parents, like coworkers or business partners especially,
Yeah.
who make significant capital decisions, who make decisions on what expenses to keep and what goes, and if times are tough, who make decisions on how to view a particular client in terms of their contribution. And it may just be made financially, or there may be more to it than that, and that's all a
Right.
part of this too, is how do we analyze and look at that. But
Hmm.
like I said, just to reflect on, I think, is really important, of how you've been impacted, especially during your formative years, and how you viewed money, and realizing too that we're all, we tend to categorize a certain group of people as being good with money.
Right.
But actually, his premise is that we're all good with money. It's just
Hmm.
we're good with money in different ways, and we express
Yes.
it in different ways for different purposes.
Yes.
And what's important to us in how we use it isn't all the same across the board for all people. So to
Hmm.
recognize the difference in somebody else, and how, getting back, sort of taking our conversation full circle, of somebody else is going to be complimentary to me and how they view money, and
Right.
use it. And it's not bad, it's just different. And so just to
Sheesh.
recognize that, it doesn't mean we have to collide and conflict. It just means I need to be aware of how you may view things differently, and how you handle money probably than I do. And so,
Yeah.
it, being respectful, and also, I think, appreciative of
Hmm.
those nuanced differences, that we don't have to be wired exactly the same way, and we probably aren't.
Yeah, right. That's probably, yeah, probably not going to be. And I think that's okay. Like that's the whole, that term good with money has been something that I've been throwing around in my mind a lot lately, because like I don't I don't want to be necessarily classified as that. I think I'd rather people come at a point of like I am very intentional with my money. Because I think from the outside, people, may not like, I just, the good or bad or right or wrong, like I just don't necessarily want to try and frame things in those boxes. I think it's, well, viewing money as what it is, right? As one being a tool, but one, if you want to earn more of it, just viewing it as it's a tool to signify an exchange of value. So if you want to earn more of it, be more valuable, sort of in a sense. And then seeing it as a tool to enhance your life, the people around you. Like, I love what you were just talking about, because I think what drives me so much is just the bringing more awareness to the topic of money. And I understand that it's difficult and it can be taboo and it's not talked about a lot, but that's the whole idea of it, is just not being aware of how much of an impact it's going to have on your life, how much it's going to affect your relationship with your business partners, your spouse, where you travel, how you travel, where you eat, where you live, where you work, all that. Like, it's going to have an effect on all of that. So sort of putting your head in the sand and hoping that it just goes away. Like, it's just not that's not the approach to life that I take with all these things. And so bringing more awareness around it. I want to prompt that to anybody that's watching or listening, to take some time and journal today about, what was your first memory? What's your first memory or interaction with money? Because I know that as soon as you said that, like, I'm going back and I'm writing about it today, because I know there's something going to come out of that for me. So I want to encourage anybody else to do that. But from that book, like the 7 money types, I'm definitely going to buy that. That's really interesting. But where do you fall into that? Like, what was your relationship with it growing up? Do you feel like you have a handle with it? Was it something that you had to work on? I know so much of it for entrepreneurs too. Like, I call accounting just like the language of business. And so many people are like, I'm just not good with money. So then they struggle with just cash flow and certain things that are going to hamper their growth of their business, their enjoyment of the business. But like, how's that been with you? Like, was that something that came naturally to you? Did you have to work at it? What did that look like?
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably more of the type that he would say uses money to acquire beauty, or to see beauty in the world, I guess you
All
might say.
right.
I can't. It's been a while since I've been in his book, but
Yeah.
to to have the opportunity to go someplace with a beautiful view or something like
Yeah.
that.
Like an experience.
I'm not articulating that super well, but rather than acquiring a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
I'm more of the type that's interested in the experiences,
I
and
love that.
maybe in having a significant trip, or creating
Yes.
memories with somebody else that can give me
That's great.
those places to go back to in my mind, that money
Right.
is able to facilitate and affect that for me.
That's great.
So that's I'm not a terrific saver. I'm A lot of our business activity here is around accounting. I'm not an accountant.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I guess, as a blessing for business owners to come to us and realize that we're not all like accountants
Accountant by trade, right?
down to them. That we understand too that the practical aspect of being able to command that without
Yes.
having to be an expert on debits and credits is important for you as a business owner to understand what your finances are talking to you. They're telling
Mm.
you things, and if you can understand what they're saying to you, you don't need to be able to do that function, or fill in for your bookkeeper for a month if they don't. You don't need to have that skill level, but you do need to be able to understand what's important. And part of understanding what's important is being able to, like I said, ask, number one, to know to have a clear vision, and to know what your mission is, and then all those other things really fall in line behind that, of okay, since I know that this is ultimately the direction I'm going, what do I need to know that's most important, that either adds to that enhances that gets me there
Mm.
faster, that accelerates that journey, or that will detract from that. And a lot of the other stuff is not, it's not that it's unimportant, but it can be a lot of noise too, that you as a business owner have tons of things in your purview, in your ear,
Yep.
in your feed, that it's on your list of to-dos. You have a lot of decisions to make. You have no shortage of options of where to spend your time, and your focus and your energy. But just being able to, as Perry Marshall emphasizes, to 80/20 those things, to really understand that there is a smaller group of most important, that will sort of drive the whole direction.
Hmm.
And I think that's really freeing too, for an
Yeah.
entrepreneur to, okay, I can distill this down to the most important things, and really be very effective in how I lead, and how I direct.
Right.
Because you know, like I said earlier, if I've got that trusted team around me,
Yep.
as a leader, as an owner, and a business leader, then they can take care of a lot of the details too, because they know, we've got a clear and a well articulated vision. They know all that, they buy in.
Mm-hmm.
So I can trust them to take care of their portions too, and tell me where things are off, or flag certain areas of concern for me. But I don't have to hold all that myself. I can,
Right.
when I have this team around me, and the finances are like that too.
Hmm.
When we have this team of trusted advisors, and a guide like us that can help step in and point things out, point out the rocks in the river. You want to stay over here because this is the channel we need to be in.
Yeah. Right.
Over there is going to get you in trouble. When you can have that around you, and have somebody that is going to point those things out for you, or help you, help you ask, would it be better to go left or right around this particular island?
Yeah. Right.
And let's figure out why we're going to we have to make one decision, right?
Yes.
We have to choose a direction. In businesses like that, we have to make those decisions. So let's ask the best questions we can about what our options are, and then move forward decisively when we know.
Yeah, you know what I love about like the intention behind you guys is so much of like, you guys aren't here to just, this is the answer, and if you don't vibe with this answer, then like you're wrong. It's all right, like what are the questions that are going to lead you closer to your, maybe not even like an answer in general, but just your specific answer, or what makes the most sense to you. It's like, okay, well, there's just not, I love to like when the only tool that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail sort of thing, right? Like it's not always just like it's this way and that's it. It's, well, here's here's the factors, here's the variables, here are the different moving pieces, and then prompting somebody to make the decision that ultimately they can feel secure and confident in. And I think it's very similar to like how you should feel about money. It's like the right investment for me, or my approach at my age, is going to be different than what makes sense to you, and what, and at different stages of our lives. And so it's not always that what works for me is going to work for somebody else. It's what are the things that I went through that got me closer to having conviction in the decision that I'm making with my money, in a business, in a relationship, with my health, whatever it might be. It's across the board. It's just getting closer and closer to like peeling that away a little bit more. And again, it's coming back to it, just being intentional with your decisions.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's great. I love that. All right. I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but the way I like to actually, I just recently started wrapping it up this way. And this is how I wrapped it up with Frank. And I want to pose this question to you. And I know you've listened to some of the other ones, but you haven't listened to that one yet because I haven't published it. So this is going to be a new one. But
I didn't even eavesdrop, Noah, so I have no idea.
I want to
I'm clear
hear
across the building, so I can't.
Yeah, right. I want to hear how do you define wealth? What does that mean to you? How do you define it? How do you get closer and closer to feeling like you are a wealthy business owner person? What does that mean to you?
Wow, there's a lot of depth there. I'll just be honest immediately. Where my mind goes is options and freedom.
Yeah.
And I
Well said.
I see I see when we live life on purpose, when we live life
Hmm.
according to the awareness of, like I said at the beginning, that the relationships we have, I think, are an incredible source of wealth for each of us,
I
not
love
only to
that.
receive but also to give. Because
Yep.
truly when we give, I think there's much more fulfillment
Hmm.
in being able to give of ourselves. We all have so much to give in terms of giftedness, of abilities, of complementary attributes to somebody else, that we're encouraged, I think, to look at all of life as what can I get out of it,
Mm-hmm.
rather to flip that script and say what can I give to somebody else today. There's incredible freedom in that, and as we grow and strengthen those relationships, I think that's where a lot of the options come in. I've I've had the tremendous fortune and blessing of working for a lot of people that I had prior relationships to. And it's given me a lot of diverse and very fulfilling experiences in life and my careers. And it's
Yeah.
given me a lot of, it's just built a lot of relationships for me that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And it's built them at a depth that I wouldn't have been able to experience otherwise. So, I think that no matter how my bank accounts ever look, no matter how my retirement accounts ever look, to me that's the wealth of having all those connections, being able to learn from those people, as you're doing now with the intentionality of this podcast, to collect a lot of these things, the wisdom from other people that you can learn and take and apply yourself, and that you can pass on to somebody else as well.
Yeah.
You know, that affects true freedom and options for anybody in life, to have that network of people that you can go to in your time of need,
Yeah.
that they can come to you as well. That you can collaborate together, you can enjoy different things together.
Right.
That's what I think the essence of a lot of life is about.
I'm getting just some chills right now hearing it. Brian, seriously, I think the people that the experience that you've had, and like, I think it's a true testament just to you and your character. Like, I think I love the choices, the options, the freedom. That was similar answer to what Frank actually gave me too, and that's so cool. And I think if people are defining wealth as just sort of the number that they see in their bank account, or in their retirement accounts, I think they're sort of just scratching surfaces. I think they're missing the point. I think it's so much deeper than just what that. And I think, and it's something that I've had to learn. And I think getting started, like, our approach to this is very transactional, right? Like, I put something in, I want to get something out. And then the transition of going into, well, how can I give and transform this person's life? And ultimately, in the process, basically, pretty much, I'm going to get what I've been looking for, and probably something deeper than just the money that I'm going to get from this relationship in the first place. Like, the advice, the friendship, the impact that I get to have on them, on me, on anybody else that we get to touch, all that stuff. I do want to thank you so much for being on today. This was so valuable, so fun. I already know I'm going to have you back on, because there's so many, like, your personal philosophy, your values, your beliefs, deeper experiences. There's so much more that I want to talk to you about. But again, Brian, I really appreciate you being on today. Seriously, thank you so much.
It's an honor. Thank you, Noah.
All
Appreciate it.
right. You're the best, man. All right. Anybody that's listening, watching, please make sure you leave us a like, leave us a review. Make sure you journal today about your first interaction with money. That's my big takeaway. But other than that, to all my builders out there, I salute you, and I will see you all in the next episode.